what's up? It's Richie here with Started Fighting Football. This is week 1 of the college football season. These will be the primetime games, starting off the huge game. One of the biggest games of the season. This could have college playoff implications. Georgia and Clemson. Georgia is 8-2. Only 11 returning starters, though. They have JT Daniels back at quarterback, 1,231 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. He started later in the year and did pretty well. I'm still not quite sold on him. I remember him at USC. He sucked there, but he might be okay here. But everything else around them, running back Zamir White, 779 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. George Pickens was going to be one of the best receivers in the country. He's hurt and he's going to miss the season. That is a big loss for them. Whereas Clemson's coming back, they're 10-2. Trevor Lawrence is not there, but DJ Uiagalelei is back at quarterback. 914 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. He had like 400 yards against Notre Dame the first time, even though they lost. They should not miss a beat offensively with him at quarterback. And along with some receivers, they have Justin Ross back, who didn't play. I think got hurt in like the first quarter or early on or something, but he should be back and great. I'm going to go with Clemson getting a win here. I think this is really tough because both are strong offensively, both are strong defensively. It is in Clemson. I think JT Daniels. I need JT Daniels to prove something to me. I believe in DJ Uiagalelei. I don't see it with JT yet, so I'm going to go Clemson winning there. All right, then you got FAU, Florida Atlantic playing against the Gators. The Florida Atlantic was 5-4 last year. They have 21 returning starters. They're actually 10th nationally in scoring defense. Their offense was pretty terrible, but their defense was great. They have Nick Chauncey, 905 passing, 6 touchdowns, 3 picks. Javian Posey, quarterback, 395 passing, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks, plus 403 rushing, 3 touchdowns. So whoever they start should do pretty decently. With defensive end Jalen Joyner getting 6 sacks last season. Florida, they only have 9 returning starters. They were 13th in scoring offense. They were the number 1 passing offense in the country, but Trask and Pitts and Tony and all those guys are gone. Emory Jones was decent as a backup, 221, 2 touchdowns and a pick, plus 217 rushing and 2 touchdowns. This has been Emory Jones' team for the last few years, or supposedly before Trask blew up out of nowhere. We'll see how well they do against a pretty stout defense in Florida Atlantic. They shouldn't have a lot of trouble against Florida Atlantic, but if they do, that could tell a lot about this season, but I'll go Gators winning that one. All right, Northwestern State and North Texas. North Texas always has one of the best passing teams in the country. They were 25th last year in passing, 8th in total offense, 23rd in scoring offense. Austin Aune, 1,650 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks there. Running back DeAndre Torrey, 656 rushing and 6 touchdowns. And Oscar Attaway at running back, 572 rushing and 3 rushing touchdowns. They're losing their top receiver, Jalen Darden, who had 19 touchdown receptions. That shouldn't hurt them too much in this game. I think North Texas should roll. All right, UTSA and Illinois. This could be an interesting game. UTSA was a pretty decent team. They were 7-5 last year. They have 21 returning starters. They were 19th in rushing offense, 41st in scoring defense. Frank Harris at quarterback passed for 1,630 yards, 12 touchdowns and 6 picks, and ran for 528 and 9 touchdowns. Running back Sincere McCormick, remember that name? He was one of the best in the country last year. Ran for 1,467 yards and 11 touchdowns. Wide receiver is Zakari Franklin, 49 catches, 694 and 7 touchdowns. Safety Rashad Wisdom, 95 tackles and 4 picks. And Joshua Cephas at receiver as well, 58 catches, 547 and 5 touchdowns. So they have a good quarterback, a great running back, and 2 solid, really good dual receivers. So they could put up some points on Illinois. Illinois kind of had a shocking first. They played last week against Nebraska. They beat them. First game on Brett Bielema. Brandon Peters was hurt. Arthur Sitkowski, who was a transfer from Rutgers, played well enough. 12 of 15, 124, and 2 touchdowns. Defensively, they had 5 sacks and a fumble return for a touchdown. I'm going to put Illinois on upset alert. They're coming in flying high. UTSA is a decent CUSA team trying to make another bowl game. Illinois is only picked by 5.5, so even the odds makers know that UTSA is no slouch. I do think Illinois will end up with a win, but that'll be a close one. All right, you got Northern Illinois and Georgia Tech. Northern Illinois was 0-6 last year. They got Michigan State, Rocky Lombardi transferring in at quarterback. Running back Harrison Whaley, 456 rushing yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Tyrese Ritchie, 53 catches, 597 yards, 4 touchdowns in only those 6 games. Whereas Georgia Tech 3-7 last year. Jeff Sims, he was a freshman last year. He was solid. 1,881 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 13 picks. Later on, towards the end of the year, he started to drop those interceptions. So if he doesn't turn over as much, he could be really, really good. He also ran for 492 and 6 touchdowns there. I think Georgia Tech should be able to get off to a pretty nice start. Justin's may show he's one of the better ACC quarterbacks in this game, even though it's against Northern Illinois. If he can come out against a, quote, lesser opponent, so to speak, and have a really good game, then that could set things up for the rest of the year. All right, you got William & Mary in Virginia. Virginia 5-5 last year. Brandon Armstrong had a pretty good year at quarterback, 2,117 yards, 18 touchdowns to 11 picks, plus 552 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Wide receiver Billy Kemp, 67 catches, 644 yards and a touchdown. And Nick Jackson at linebacker had 105 tackles there. They should be a solid team in the ACC, a bowl team this year, and they shouldn't have much trouble with William & Mary. All right, Kent State and Texas A&M. Kent State played 4 games. They're 3-1, but they were the number 1 scoring offense in the country in those games and number 1 in total offense. That flash-fast offense that Dustin Cumb runs to perfection. Passed for 1,181 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Wide receiver Deshaun Poe, 21 catches, 326 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And they have Syracuse wide receiver transfer Nike Johnson going in for that flash-fast offense. They're taking on a Texas A&M team that was 9-1 last year, but they lost their quarterback Kellen Mond, who I never thought was that great anyway. They have a really good running back in Isaiah Spiller, who ran for 1,036 yards and 9 touchdowns. And E. Smith, one of the best overall threats maybe in the country, with 293 rushing and 4 touchdowns, and had 43 catches for 564 yards and 6 touchdowns, and is a return man. Tight end Jalen Weidermeyer, one of the best tight ends in the SEC, with 46 catches for 506 yards and 6 touchdowns. I'm going to put Texas A&M on upset alert. I think they should be able to still outduel Kent State, but Kent State, if nobody's seen them play, they have an offense that can maybe put a scare into A&M. Next is the Montana versus Washington. Washington not only played 4 games, they were 3-1. They have the number 39 scoring defense in the country. Dylan Moore is the quarterback, 897 passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. K. Dodden, one of the better tight ends in the nation, 18 catches, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. They have Zion Tupuola-Fetui, who had 7 sacks on those 4 games, but I think he got hurt in this spring. So he's going to actually miss the rest of the year, but that shouldn't hurt them too much this game. I think Washington should be able to beat Montana. All right, East Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, terrible year, 0-9. They have a new head coach in Clark Lee, who is the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. They have a pretty good quarterback in Ken Seals, who has a freshman pass for 1,928, 12 touchdowns, and 10 picks. Vanderbilt, they have some decent parts, especially on offense, good receivers, and they should be able to beat East Tennessee State. All right, Southern Mississippi Golden Eagles and the South Alabama Jaguars. This could be a pretty good game. Southern Miss was only 3-7, but they have 17 returning starters, a new head coach in Will Hall, running back Frank Gore Jr., the Frank Gore's son, in only those 10 games ran for 708 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Jason Brownlee, 34 catches, 610 yards, 5 touchdowns there. And linebacker Hayes Maple had 91 tackles. They're kind of starting over at quarterback, so they'll be relying on their running game at least early on. Whereas USA, they were 4-7 last year. They have South Carolina / Utah. Jake Bentley, quarterback, transferring into there. He started his career at South Carolina, was pretty decent, then played last year. I believe it was at Utah, and then now he should be starting for South Alabama. They have a really good receiver in Jalen Tolbert, 64 catches, 1,085 yards, and 8 touchdowns last season alone. And middle linebacker Nick Mobley had 94 tackles. I'm actually going to go South Alabama is usually kind of a lower team. They're in the Sun Belt. Or Southern Miss is usually a decent team in this USA. But I think South Alabama, I think Jake Bentley will be enough. They have a really good receiver, and I think they'll have a little bit too much for Southern Miss to overcome. But I think this could be a pretty close game and possibly a high-scoring game. But I'll actually go South Alabama there. All right, then you got Duquesne against TCU from the Big 12. TCU was 6-4 last year. They have Max Duggan, who's a good dual threat quarterback. He passed for 1,795 yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks, and ran for 526 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. And defensive end, O'Shawn Mathis, 9 sacks, one of the top sackers in the country last year. They should have no problem with Duquesne. A huge non-conference title or game between LSU and UCLA. LSU's traveling across the country to play in California. LSU was 5-5 last year. Miles Brandon, 1,112 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. He was hurt. Max Johnson and TJ Finley both came in, played pretty well. Max Johnson, 1,069 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 1 pick. They still have some talent at receiver, including Keyshawn Boo, who had 45 catches, 735 yards, and 5 touchdowns. UCLA, they already played one game already, and they beat Hawaii, and they beat them pretty soundly, 44-10. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 130 passing yards and a touchdown. Running back Zach Charbonnet, 106 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. They ran for 244 yards. Defensively, forced 2 turnovers and had a blocked punt return for a touchdown. This could be a pretty high-scoring game. Both offenses could be pretty good. This should be a fun game to watch. One that's kind of under the radar. Both LSU is ranked 16th. UCLA, like I said, they are 1-0. I'm not sure who to go with here. LSU, they expect to bounce back. I'm not so sure. I think UCLA will actually come out with the victory here, but this should be a really fun game to watch, and I'm looking forward to that one. All right, Bethune-Cookman and UTEP. UTEP, they started 1-0 by beating New Mexico State 30-3. Gavin Hardison, 249, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Jacob Cowling, 5 catches, 158 yards, and a touchdown. They put up 452 yards of offense. Defensively, had 3 sacks in that game, and they should be able to do it again and beat Bethune-Cookman. Nevada and Cal, interesting game here. Nevada, one of the best teams in the Mountain West. They're coming off a 7-2 year. They have 19 returning starters. The 12th ranked passing offense in the country. Carson Strong, 2,858 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions last year. He's back. Toa Tao, running back, ran for 675 and 4 touchdowns. Wide receiver Romeo Doves, 58 catches, 1,002 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And Elijah Cook, another receiver who didn't play last year. 2 years ago, he had 926 receiving yards. So basically 2 1,000-yard receivers going back with a really strong offense. Against Cal, who normally plays good defense. They were only 1-3 in their 4 games last year. Chase Garbers is back at quarterback, 771, 6 touchdowns and 3 picks. They have one of the better linebackers in the Pac-12, in Kuwaning Dang. This will be really interesting. Like I said, Nevada's got a really good offense. Cal normally has a pretty good defense. It's strength against strength. I'm kind of leaning towards for Nevada here, but I'll pick Cal. I'll say that maybe Cal's offense can find something going this year in this game, but I'm putting them squarely on upset alert. All right, then you got BYU facing Arizona. BYU is going to suck this year, I think. They were great last year, 11-0. They're number 3 scoring offense in the country, number 4 scoring defense. They had Zach Wilson, who was really good. They didn't have a very tough schedule. They beat a few decent teams last year, but they didn't play a single Power 5 team last year. They lost a lot of players on their team. Their offensive coordinator, I think, went to Baylor. Pretty much the best thing they have coming back is running back Tyler Algier, who did run for 1,130 yards and 13 touchdowns. They have some quarterbacks coming back. Baylor Romney, I believe he has some experience and is pretty decent, but I think they're losing way too much. They're playing a bad Arizona team, though, that was 0-5. They have a new head coach in Jed Fish. Their quarterback, who's decent, transferred out, so they're also starting over completely. I'm not sure who's going to win. BYU's favored by a lot, but I really don't think BYU is going to do very well. I have a feeling they might kind of surprise some people. I'm going to go out on a limb. This will be my biggest thing this weekend is I'm going to say Arizona beats BYU. All right, then you got New Mexico State and San Diego State. New Mexico State already played a game against UTEP and lost 30-3. Both their quarterbacks that played were terrible. 9 for 33 combined for only 89 yards and 190 total yards of offense. San Diego State went 4-4 last year. They had 14 returning starters. They were the number 11 scoring defense in the country. They have a good running back in Greg Bell, who ran for 637 and 6 touchdowns in those 8 games. He should get 1,000 yards rushing. San Diego State always has one of the best defenses statistically in the country. Offensively, they usually have a pretty strong running game. No matter what quarterback is there, they're at least solid enough. As long as they don't turn it over, they can rely on the running game and defense, and they should be able to do that in this game to beat New Mexico State. All right, then you got Utah State and Washington State. Could be a pretty high-scoring game here. Utah State was 1-5, but they have a new head coach in Blake Anderson, who spent the last, I think, 7 years at Arkansas State. Last year, Arkansas State had the number 2 passing offense in the country, and they always had one of the top offenses in the Sun Belt in the Group of 5, and one of the better ones in the country. They should get Utah State going. And not only did he get there, Arkansas State, they basically had a 2 quarterback system. One of them, Logan Monarch, transferring in. In that 2 quarterback system, he did pass for 1,863 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 6 picks. So he should put up some pretty big numbers at Utah State. And against Washington State, who they only went 1-3 in their 4 games last year. They have kind of a run and gun passing offense. They'll put the ball up in the air a whole lot. Jaden Delora, 886, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. And they have Jarrett Garantano, who transferred in from Tennessee. Wide receiver Renard Bell, 33 catches, 337 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Travell Harris, 29 catches, 340 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And only in those 4 games, they could both have 1,000 yards. I'm going to say Washington State wins this one, but this could be possibly a fun game to watch. The ball should be in the air many times for both teams. Could be high scoring. I'll go Washington State. Hey, then the final game of the Saturday night games, Portland State and Hawaii. Hawaii, they did not look very good against UCLA. They lost 44-10. Chevin Cordero was okay, 25-47, 220, 1 touchdown. He did throw 2 picks. I think they should be able to get right and at least get a victory against Portland State. All right, so those are the primetime games for Saturday night. Check out my other videos for the 3:30 and the noon games, and my next video will be for the Sunday game and the Labor Day Monday night games. So check out all my videos and peace.